What's up, Vivers? It is March 5th. We got our big content patch hitting the breach today in SUPERVIVE. And the biggest part of that probably is the new hunter Saros. He is super cool. He's got this giant stun rifle. He can do all kinds of cool stuff. He can make portals. He can shoot a crazy distance. And I did a full guide on this guy. And he's kind of this big first chunk of the patch notes. And you can find that in the previous video on my channel. I will also link it in the description. And I'm going to give you a really brief summary up front here, and then we'll go through each section a little more in detail. I'll show any relevant stuff in the practice tool. All that will be timestamped if you want to jump around. It says, hello, Supervivors. Today's patch is on the lighter side as we're cooking a number of changes that will have a large impact on the shape of the game. Want to help out? You should join us on our Discord to get into our beta playtest and see what's on the horizon. We're excited for these changes, but just want to make sure that they're well baked. And so in the Discord, you can actually go to the role you want to get is playtest interested. And then in announcements, one of the announcement tabs is where they announce when they do the beta playtest. And that's like where they're basically the hottest stuff that's cooking, like not fully baked yet, like still in the oven. And those are honestly really fun playtests to participate in. They're usually just like a couple hours and they'll ping them like the day before. So if you're interested in that, join the SUPERVIVE Discord, get involved in that kind of stuff, and leave your feedback and have an impact on the future of SUPERVIVE. All right, so diving into a quick summary of everything that's here. First, we got our new hunter Saros. He's really cool. I do a full video kind of going over how to play this guy, all the in-depth mechanics of how his kit sort of interacts with itself. So if you want to learn more about him, you can check that out. First, like pretty big change is Grandmaster Plus queues are back down to duo. So if you are ranked Grandmaster or above, which is basically just Grandmaster and Legend players. So if you are Grandmaster or Legend in squads, you will no longer be able to queue with 4 players. You'll be limited to 2 in the squad's ranked queue. We can see here that this is not applied to duos and has nothing to do with arena. Really interesting, potentially cool change here where you can now recall to the nearest ally if you don't have a bonfire. This whole section right here is basically big changes to the leveling and XP where they're like reverting a couple things to the way they used to be. So like the soft level cap is back. The AP scaling per level is going to be less inherently. Also the ability power scaling on items is going to be less, but the base value is going to be back to higher. So basically like reverting a few of the changes that have been in from the last month. Not the whole thing, but basically just some of the specific changes to sort of discourage this perma farming. All right, in combat, this whole part is basically saying these are adjustments to the heal, knock, reset, and they're like hunter-specific adjustments. So basically, hunters that had more than 1 dash charge, which are these guys, are only going to get 1 dash charge back now. And they're also making an exception now, which I don't necessarily agree with, but Joule no longer receives the dash. So she's going to be the only character now not getting to participate in this heal, knock, reset mechanic. All right, quickly going over hunter specifics. Beebo bomb buffed now, gives movement speed, crazy. Adjustment to the mastery. Celeste getting some ult adjustments. Elluna pretty big buff, giving the full dash reset when you grab a wisp. A new passive on Ghost, really cool omnivamp stacking thing. Little air dash change. Hudson body slam now refunds cooldown, so cooldown increased a little bit, but now can get cooldown back based on how many people he bumps with his belly. This is sort of like a crazy Joule nerf. I think a bit over the top, to say the least, but stacked with what we just saw up here, her not getting to participate in this heal, knock, reset anymore. Really big Joule nerf this patch, which we'll go over. Shrike Buff to her LMB, giving her armor shred when she gets a knock. They're bringing some of the OP sort of epic powers up to legendary and making legendary powers not soulbound anymore, so you can drop them when you die. Pretty cool Elixir update. I like this stuff. Adjustment to the lava monsters, and now those corrupted guardians will actually be dropping gold instead of a random power, 1,000 gold. Adjustments to like UI, gold pickup, sound, minimap icon stuff. So it should be pretty good. These little changes to communications, like a little limiter on emote spam, I guess. Increased hunters of the support pack by 1. Mention some stuff on cosmetics, random changes that may have happened, and these like quest changes that basically are updates to the gold, which is now standardized to be shared across teammates. So it should be sort of like a more even, consistent gold split coming from quests. Boom. All right, getting into the details here, our first big change are these Grandmaster Plus Premade restrictions. And I'm going to just like read you this first part because it's pretty interesting. We've been seeing a lot of feedback on rank, specifically that organized Premade squads tend to run the lobbies, and it's really difficult for solo players to progress as they go higher tier. Late last year, we added Premade restrictions at the top to address this feedback, but saw negative responses from players not being able to play with their friends, so we walked it back. It's a rock and a hard place, but now that we've seen both realities, we think it's better on the interim that we go back to pre-made restrictions. That said, we can be sharper about those restrictions, and along with a lot of the rank tunings we've been doing the past couple months, we can better target only the top of the ladder. And then it's worth pointing out and remembering that they do have more longer-term changes planned for the future, and they're still keeping an eye on things. So, and they also give this mention right here, which I really agree with. If you love organized competitive play, like if you're at the top of the ladder wanting to 4-stack, there is a an NA scrims Discord, there's a EU scrims Discord, and there's like all these competitive community tournaments getting ran. Like we had the Abyssal Cup ran by Just Relic last weekend, and then the weekend before that, Nidhogg hosted that crazy arena tournament. Like Nidhogg's tournament, he fronted $1,500 prize pool. It was insane. And the Just Relic event was like an $800 event that got bumped up to $1,000 by Trev, one of the players. So there's some really cool like competitive high level organized play happening, and there are some like really good places to even practice that stuff against other 4-stacks that are interested in playing at that level. So I highly encourage you to join the Discord, start checking that stuff out, and get involved if you're kind of in this restriction where you're going to get hit by this. And it's also important to mention that this has nothing to do with duos. This is basically just squads. So in squads, if you're Grandmaster or Legend, you will only be able to queue with one other person. In duos, you can still queue 2 out of 2. It doesn't matter. And also, none of this has anything to do with Arena, which does not have like a rank system. Okay, coming down to game structure, this is like really cool. I'm like really interested to see how this is going to play out, especially in competitive play. This could be pretty spicy, but I think in solo queue, this is going to be really useful because a lot of times your team doesn't have a fire, especially early, especially if you guys are having, kind of like a poverty run that game. And so this could be a really interesting way to let you guys kind of regroup and try to get that tempo back like sooner. But we'll have to see how this ends up playing out. This ally recall. So essentially, if you don't have a camp, you'll be able to recall to your nearest ally with your recall button. Taking a look at the leveling adjustments, part 3. So this is like the third round of kind of big changes they've made to this. I'll read this here. As we saw our leveling farming changes play out on live, we think we pushed possible power differentials, which means how far apart two teams can be in terms of raw power via levels, gear, stats, etc., too far. So basically, the power differential was too big. There's a balance to be struck between farming feels good versus perma-farming is mandatory somewhere in these changes. So basically, they're taking some of the big changes they implemented with the giant patch last month, and they're pulling some of them back. But they're like modified versions where they're not pulling them back all the way. They're pulling them back in like sort of a lesser extent. Soft level caps are back. So this is a very interesting one. But basically, what the removal of level cap has seen in the kind of SUPERVIVE meta is that there is a lot of like, perma farming. Like if you're basically any kind of free time or free space, you want to be like, getting creeps so you're not like falling behind because everyone on the map can constantly be like farming levels. So the soft caps were originally introduced like way back. They just got taken out, like a month ago or so. They were introduced basically to encourage fighting, like at the breakpoints. And so they're sort of reintroducing that. But it's not going to be a hard cap. It's going to be 20% of the XP you would normally earn. Never less than 1 XP, which is not much. But basically, you're going to be getting 1/5 of the XP when you're at the cap. So it's not like a total waste of time, but it's 1/5 as valuable as if you weren't at the cap. And then they're also introducing this pretty cool change where it's like a catch up, where if you're helping a teammate farm to catch up that's behind on levels, you won't be count as splitting XP from them if you're at this soft cap. So it's like if you're at the soft cap, you can help your homie who maybe got killed that you just rezzed catch up without worrying about leeching their XP or taking kind of value from them as they're farming. So I think that's like a pretty cool change to help people sort of catch up on your team. And this is probably kind of the most interesting one that will probably feel the most impactful. AP per level decrease from +10 to +5 per level. So before, every time you leveled up, you were getting +10 ability power. And there's 15 levels, right? So that would be 150 ability power over the course of that journey. Now you're only going to be getting 5 ability power per level. So 15 levels, so that's half. So it would be 75, right? Ability power over the course of those 15 levels. And so basically, at the end of the day, when we're 15, this means, if I'm interpreting this correctly, which I'm not sure what else it could mean, this essentially means at level 15, we're going to have 75 less ability power base than we otherwise would have had the last month. So they're basically like tuning down the overall power of the sort of damage scaling a bit even. And then in a similar kind of like, vein of thought, this shop and equipment change is kind of like, yeah, related to the above. We're walking back our previous changes that made upgrade levels have a larger impact on the game. So basically, the items are going to end up being the same in the end, but the way how strong they are early is kind of nerfed. So, better. Like the difference between a white weapon or a green weapon and an epic or a pink weapon is much decreased or literally halved. So equipment stats now start with 50% more base value. So i.e., instead of 100 ability power, which they were starting at, they're going to have 150 ability power to start. So like your base weapon is going to be much stronger, literally 50% stronger than it has been the last month. But now the equipment upgrades grant 10 less ability power per upgrade. So in the end, a fully upgraded weapon is still going to equal the 200 ability power, right? But the difference is going to be it's going to gain 10 per upgrade instead of jumping 20. So instead of starting at 100 and jumping 20 ability power every level to 200, essentially doubling its power over the course of that journey, now it's going to start at 150 and it's going to jump 10 ability power every level, so it's going to be kind of less of a crazy difference between a fully upgraded one and a non-upgraded one. And upgrade prices have been reduced by 25% to account for upgrades being less impactful. So you'll find decreased prices on like taking your items from, white to green, green to blue, etc., all the way up. Coming down to combat, mainly focused on this heal dash knock reset and them doing like hunter specific tuning for this. So it says, now that the heal dash reset change has settled a bit and we're seeing good results, we're going back to updating the hunters that get less value from their kits due to this change. We'll call out those in their respective hunter sections. On the other side, we also need to pull back some of the strength of this mechanic for hunters that abuse it the most. And then so to document all this, hunters with multiple dashes or dash charges only get one charge of their dash back on knock. And so this will affect Brawl, Bishop, Krista, Myth, Beebo, and Felix. And there's an exception to this rule where Joule specifically is no longer going to receive a dash refresh on knock. So Joule is now going to be the exception to this sort of global heal dash knock reset rule. And I really don't like this. I don't think the characters should be designed such that they need to be excluded from a global rule. I think if you're needing to exclude a hunter from a global rule, there's something sort of fundamentally wrong with that hunter's design that needs to be adjusted. And I don't know if that's what they're trying to do with these Joule changes, which I sort of don't agree with the gravity of all this targeted Joule nerf. It seems like kind of way overkill from multiple different angles, and we'll get to that when we talk about her. It says Shrike has additional benefits for knocking enemies, and then we also have basically adjustments to a couple hunters based on this. For example, Ghost, passive, which used to be refreshing his dash when he got a knock, was now useless because that's literally what this does. And so now he has a new Omnivamp passive that's pretty cool. Shrike getting some additional benefit because she's a sniper, I guess. So they're like giving her LMB more, some armor shred on kill. So if we get down to like the actual hunter specifics here, taking a look at Beebo, it says last patch we said bombs are sentient and have the power over life and death. This patch we realized all sentient things yearn for company and not just being smashed into enemies. So we're giving Beebo and his friends reasons to hang out with the B-bombs before their inevitable explosive demise. I don't know if this bomb needed a buff. I think it maybe needed a little bit of a damage nerf, but instead it's going to be now giving Beebo and allies 20% move speed while near the bomb. And, the bomb can res now, the bomb can stomp enemy wisp now. And so continuing to kind of increase the utility and usefulness of the scary Beebo bomb. And then this is just like a little change to his hunter mastery, like the quest to progress and get the titles and such. And it's just being adjusted from get knocks with Super Zeep to being a little easier, get knocks assists on units recently hit by Super Zeep. So just making it more reasonable to stack those. All right, coming down to these Celeste changes, I'm a little confused. Sometimes I'm confused by what they write here and then what it says here. And this is one of those situations. So it says, while it's a defining feature of Celeste Ultimate that she has to earn the full channel, it's making her so predictable for experienced players to play around that we'd like to add just a smidge of variability for her to play some mind games. Okay, so then we look at the changes, which are to her are. Reactivating this ability early in the last 0.75 seconds of the spell now deals less damage and less stun duration. Okay, so just sort of like a nerf to the early activation on the Celeste ult, right? So there's this like window at the end of the ult right there where it cracks out, where you basically get the whole ult effect. And you can see this bottom part of the tooltip that reflects what we were just saying. You can reactivate it early in the final 0.75 seconds to deal 67% of the above effects. Reactivating before cancels the spell. So as far as I know, you could already do this before. It just hit for full damage. So that's just a nerf. So I don't, that doesn't have anything to do with adding variability for her to play mind games. That's just a nerf, right? And then looking at the second one, always displays an indicator on the floor, and the detonation hitbox will always hit according to that indicator. Enemies will always see the full windup, but Celeste no longer needs to be near the floor to hit targets. This removes the ability to catch people off guard by falling from extremely high up. So I guess before you had to actually fall down for it to proc. I actually don't know this for sure because I don't have a ton of time on Celeste, but you had to actually like, you know, land and be level. But apparently now you can actually proc your ult while airborne high. Like, I wonder if you could even do it in the skybox. That'd be crazy because you can't get hit when you're in the skybox, like above that line. So like basically any verticality you have now, it's going to display the hitbox regardless, and it's going to hit according to that hitbox. Enemies are going to see the full duration of it, which I think like has always been true. But now basically, I think if you hit it while you're like, you know, really high in the air, it'll actually hit anything under it. So let's just like try launching off a pad or something. Yeah, so I think basically you can hit it like, you know, low, you can hit it high, like you can hit it anywhere in the verticality now. You know, basically this removes the ability to catch people off guard by falling from extremely high up. So that's a nerf. But I think this means that you can actually hit people from super high up if you're able to get super high up while it's proccing. Like if you hit like a NATO, or like you get some momentum into like a pad that is like better than what I just showed, or like a crazy win ring or something. And so maybe that's what they mean by this like smidge of variability. But yeah, some sort of interesting adjustments to the Celeste R. Coming on to Elluna, it says this might be too good, but let's see. That sounds interesting. So basically what's happening is the air dash is now going to reset its cooldown entirely, the level 4 air dash, when you grab a wisp. So before this fully upgraded was giving a 2-second cooldown on the dash, but now it's going to give a full duration. And so what this means, like why this is really big, is because if you have an ally go down over here, you can air dash, you know, B-hop your way in, grab them, and it's going to instantly reset your big air dash to basically jump that same exact distance out. And the whole time you can have your ground dash up still, where if you get in here and you grab their wisp and you need to like dodge, you know, a Kingpin Slam or something, you can still like do your ground dash hop, your little schmoove tech to get out of there, and then you still have your big air dash up to like, you know, bounce way the hell out of there right after you've grabbed the wisp because you got the full reset. New Ghost passive. This is pretty rad, actually. So still called Combat Rush. Whenever Ghost lands a non-LMB ability on a spell, gain 8% Omnivamp for 3.5 seconds. Says this can stack. This stacks twice when you attach a grenade on an enemy. The attach and the detonate both count as separate ability hits, and then it lasts for 3.5 seconds. And this is pretty big. It says it wears off all at once, not one stack at a time, meaning every time you gain a stack from connecting a non-LMB ability, it's going to basically refresh the 3.5-second duration. So taking a look at it here, Combat Rush gained plus 8% Omnivamp for 3.5 seconds after landing a non-LMB ability. So we can see what I was talking about. If we hit Shrike with a grenade, that counts as a stack. And then it exploding counts as another stack. And basically, we keep that stacking Omnivamp until the 3.5 seconds expires from each ability. So like if I throw a grenade, that's 1. The detonate refreshes it. If I laser, it'll refresh it and I'll be at 3. You know, if I hit an ultimate, it'll refresh it and be at 4. And it looks like the ult only counts as 1, despite kind of like ticking. But yeah, you can basically like keep sort of stacking that up, and it's 8% per time, which like that's a pretty sizable amount of Omnivamp. We can see 8, 16, you know, 24. Like that's like a big kind of chunk. All right, I just went and got beat up on to kind of show this. This is with no items, like no extra Omnivamp, just the 140 ability power base. just to kind of show you guys the... So that's with 2 stacks, right? Here's with 3. Here's like 3 stacks. You guys get the idea. It's pretty good. The combat slide also got changed, so it can now be tapped in the air for 2/3 of the distance of the full hold. So we can basically go a little further with our air dash, and it's going to be on that shorter cooldown timing. So I think we can even get a little B-hop in at the end of it, yeah. So if you're going to use the air jump, do a little tap at the end. And then the normal one I usually do with Ghost is this, but it got dampened a little bit with that last set of movement changes. But you can still do the ground slide pretty well. But with that adjustment to the jump, it's almost like dealer's choice now. It feels like where you could do this and get maybe even a little further, looks like now. So the new Ghost movement might be a little shift B-hop action. Is it even on a shorter cooldown? No, it's same cooldown. You just have to do the ground one with proper timing to get the full value out of it. And I even still mess it up sometimes, even if I'm practiced at it. And it looks like the air dash might even go further, and you don't even have to worry about that timing. You can just kind of rip it. Yeah, so... Or that one was a bit longer, actually. Oh, because I held it. So yeah, and then if you hold it, you know, you can go even further on the air dash, but get the full cooldown. But even just the tap now. That's the cool thing about his dash, is you can land somewhere in the range. Like, if I did it at the exact right timing, you should be able to land even at like a 6 or a 7-second cooldown, based on how long you hold it. But like, it's kind of variable in that window. Anyways. All right, pretty big Hudson buff, actually. So the cooldown on the shift got increased by 1.5 seconds across the board. But he's now going to get cooldown reduction 25% on the shift per enemy he dashes into with his like belly bump. And so this actually, you know, could make Hudson basically be able to get full dash resets if he bumps enough people. But pretty interesting. We can see I just got like 3 seconds off of it. Bump and Shrike there. But you want to be trying to be bumping people through your wire for sure. Stack your wire. I don't know if you need 3 of them. Let's stack them up and bump them through. All right, now we need to pour one out for all the Joule mains out there. Because this is a gutting. This is a rough one. So it says, Joule is too strong. Also, we know that this change to her invulnerability really nukes the use of Thunderstorm to just instantly get out of all dangerous situations, but maybe that's a good thing. And so remember, Joule already got touched by a nerf up here with this heal dash knock reset. So she's going to be the only one in the game that no longer gets a dash reset from getting a knock. Or a heal, by the way, right? Which is a big part of that, the little heal. So in addition to that, there is a nerf to her R&B. The cast time has been increased from 1/4 second up to 1/3 second. And so this is her basically spear that she uses to kind of pin. And this is when she lands this, it generates the orb to give her the dash reset that she has inherently in her kit. And it also adds a stack of her passive, and it's kind of her thing that she can like rip out really quickly to kind of start her combo a lot of the time. And so the ability to do that kind of quickly has been decreased a bit. And then the biggest changes hitting here kind of simultaneously, the shift and the R, so this and this, no longer have invulnerability, which were basically, you know, iframes where you could invuln damage. Before in the shift, once you were in that like phase state, you could not be hit at all. And same was true with the ult. That's kind of what allowed Joule to be the sort of like super aggro burst mage that she is, to just like dive in, because you know the nature of her shift is she doesn't have a true mobility tool like other hunters, like Void being like another exception to this rule, but most other hunters have some form, if not multiple forms or multiple charges of a mobility dash. Joule is an exception to that. Her dash, like all of her damage is sort of gated behind the dash, right? So she can't, she can, but it's risky, much riskier than most other hunters to use her dash for mobility, because all of her sort of damage is gated behind the dash, and her sort of ability to, you know, combo someone is gated behind the dash. So you really want your dash cooldown to be up like exactly when you need it. And before, it could also be used, you know, as like an iframe to immune enemy abilities and stuff. And so there's just like a crazy amount of her kit like in her dash. Like her dash basically is her kit. The whole thing revolves around it. But the nature of that is when you're dashing, it's putting you in a very vulnerable position. Like if I have to dash like that to deal my damage, I'm all of a sudden behind my target. If this is like a team fight, you know, all the enemies are right here and I'm right here. It's very easy for me to get collapsed on, stunned, and deleted, and I'm a squishy mage, right? So kind of the original intent and the reason she's had iframes this whole time is because, you know, her design, in her character design, she's basically meant to make herself very vulnerable. But if she plays it well mechanically, she can, you know, make enough stuff happen to where she's resetting this and able to do it back out and create this, you know, sort of like super bursty mayhem chaos backline mage assassin like playstyle, which is why, you know, some people like only play Joule or like love Joule or addicted to Joule. She has a very unique, like flashy, I would say still like very, you know, pretty high skill cap play style where to do what you needed to do to like totally assassinate people like takes like quite a bit of aim and precision. Like not just anyone can run in and like YOLO one tap be a Joule god. But now it's going to be like even more the case where if you want to make this hunter work, you're going to have to be real cracked at her because you're no longer going to be able to get that invuln from the shift or the R. It's now just going to be this ignore projectiles thing. And so basically any, you know, melee, any kind of stun, any ability, any like AoE is all going to still hit you. And you're going to be able to essentially get crowd controlled, you know, locked out, stopped out of these abilities that let you sort of navigate the battlefield before. And honestly, all this stuff together is just like really rough. Like here, stuns, roots, grounds, and glider cancel the state. And so basically, yeah, you're no longer going to be able to like iframe. So basically, projectiles are the only thing it's going to be dodging now. So you'll definitely, you know, be able to dodge a good bit of stuff that are projectiles, but likely a good bit of, you know, abilities, AoE and such is still going to be able to affect you while you are in these states. I guess we'll wait and see. And look, guys, I hate playing against a good Joule as much as anyone. It's super frustrating to play against. Like a good one can absolutely go off, but you have to basically be executing it like very well to be able to do that. And she still has a lot of counters. Like Oath, you know, an Oath shield can just basically completely shut down a Joule because she just can't shift through it. There are like specific things that, you know, kind of hard counter her kit and her playstyle that are fairly prevalent in the game. And so I think while she is really strong, I don't think she was like absolutely super too strong where she needed like multiple nerfs from multiple directions. You know, no more heal reset on shift from killing from the first change, slower time to engage her combo from the second change, and then huge removal of iframes on the shift and the R for the third dagger, all kind of coming together into what I think are sort of like an overwhelming amount of Joule nerfs. So 07 Joule mains. Hopefully, who knows how much of this is going to stick. If you're a Joule main, make sure to be giving your feedback to Theorycraft in the Discord. Even though you might hate it, make sure to try this out and give it like a real kind of analysis of how it feels in comparison, and then let them know kind of, you know, what's good or what's bad or what, you know, like or dislike. And yeah, but it's going to be definitely harder to be pulling off the Joule. All right, taking a look at Shrike. It says, as our premier sniper, Shrike struggles to pick off multiple enemies in a row, especially if she can't two-shot someone reliably. Given the dash heal reset benefits a long-range sniper less than others, we felt we could buff her lethality once she gets rolling. So this is basically just a change to her LMB, her True Talon rifle. When she knocks an enemy, her next shot gets 150% armor shred. This buff lasts for 6 seconds and only counts for the first shot, whether you hit or not. And so basically, after you get a knock, your next shot's going to be big armor shred on it. So we can see that reflected right here. So basically, you know, you hit someone, you get your mark. If you hit that second shot and get a knock, or if you get a knock literally in any case, for 6 seconds, you're going to have this True Talon rifle buff, and your very next shot is going to get 150% armor shred. Some pretty big changes to some of the powers. Basically, Abyss Specialist, Hover Wings, and Glider Jet, which are kind of the three main offenders of the epic powers that were like super strong, are all changed to legendary powers, which is tier 4, and that comes along with this really big change. All legendary powers, including the 3 above, are no longer soulbound. So now all 3 of these powers, as well as any other legendary power, which we can look at right here, So all these gold ones are now going to drop on death. So anything kind of below this level, you'll still keep all these purple, blue, and green ones and the runes. But basically anything gold, anything legendary, and all the exotics already were like this, but they're now going to be dropped on death. So Hover Wings, Abyss Specialist, and Glider Jet were the ones that got bumped up here. And I also saw Glider Jet got buffed to 4 charges. So I'm not sure why, but it's even stronger than it was before. I guess because it's legendary now, but at least you can steal it. There's a pretty cool update to all the elixirs, as well as this new elixir, Elixir of Vision. So this one I think is going to end up being really big. And it's not in this shop, it looks like, but it should be in the in-game shop where you can now buy one of these elixirs that's actually going to give you vision of invisible units. And so I think that one's going to end up being really clutch for how kind of prevalent Invis has become. Now the Elixir of Mana is going to also refund mana on LMB hits. So every half second, if you have this Elixir of Mana procced, you're actually going to be getting mana back on connecting your LMB. And it's like overkill with Saros here because he actually gets 30 back from his passive. But yeah, here to kind of give you an example, if you're Shrike and you're hitting your shots with the Elixir, it's kind of how much it's giving you back. It's not a bad amount, honestly. And then the regen from the health elixir is going to scale based off of max health instead of flat amount. So if you're building any kind of tank where you're scaling your max health, it's going to do more for you. Now it's also going to grant in combat Omnivamp on non-LMB abilities. So if I buy an elixir right here, so if I pop it, this is like how much it's giving me. And then if I look at like the Omnivamp, it's like you know, not an insignificant amount. See on the ult, got like 47 from each of them. So it's, you know, that's in combat, and out of combat it's given like pretty solid regen. So if you can get out of combat for a sec, this is going to be benefiting you. But even in combat now, you'll at least be getting a little bit of vamp off of your non-LMB type stuff. Coming down to monster adjustments, this is basically just a change to those magma brutes that were pretty beefy over in the lava. And now these corrupted guardians that spawn when you clear out like a zone of creeps are going to be dropping 1,000 gold instead of a power. And the gold can be used for, you know, all the kind of gold stuff that we need now. So interesting change here. These should just be sort of like generally good, feel good changes. It says gold pickups are now vacuumed from 300 range. You don't have to run right on top of them. That's good. And the audio ceremony has been updated. Minimap, megamap icons, icon visual pass to standardized points of interest and make them pop more. That seems good. Team HUD updated to make it clear at a glance whether a teammate is dead or alive. That's probably good. Audio queue updated for team eliminated, which is like the, you know, where you kind of track getting where you get your RP locked in when you're playing ranked. And then XP books have an updated audio queue as well. Looking at team communication and coordination, added chat messages for each of the ping wheel options. So any of these now are going to get like, you know, echoed in chat like this. And then for the very first time, we see some emote regulation being enforced. So you can no longer bind emotes to the same keys as movement inputs, lol. And emote rates are now limited, where you can still kind of spam a couple times. Look. But if you keep trying to do it, so it's like you can still do some, but it's you can't like go hyper turbo crazy like you could before, like forever. So yeah. There is an update to the Patron pack, SUPERVIVE pack buff, which increases the number of hunters granted from 4 to 5. Thank you, Carlos Carbonara, for that one. No changes to cosmetics, but they say some of you may have noticed that we've slowed down a bit on shipping cosmetics. This is deliberate. We heard your feedback that our Battle Pass contents could be better, so we've been reshuffling our skin development pipeline to beef it up for our next season debut. Stay tuned. So basically what this means is some of the skins they maybe just would have originally released for purchase like normal are getting like shuffled into the next Battle Pass to be part of the free or like earnable content in there. So that sounds pretty cool. And then errata, which I looked up because I was not 100% sure what that means. It is an error in printing or writing. For changes that weren't reflected in previous patch notes, listen, we're not deliberately hiding stuff. We just have bad documentation. That's fair. So yeah, they're just kind of calling out if they've missed anything now or in the past. Sorry, I guess. And then this final change to quests. Quest rewards are now slightly higher than before and are now standardized to be shared across teammates. was true for some quests, but not for others. So this is like, seems like pretty good change in general. Basically, these have been updated. So here's kind of the updated gold amount per quest. We can see the PvP quest that turns into the team wipe chain are 2,000 apiece. The vault initial one is 500 per player, and then the one after that, the chain to take the base camp, is 2,000 per player. So that's like, could be potentially a pretty easy one to do. And then the farm minion ones is also 500 gold like vault, and that evolves into biome soul, which is also 2,000 per player. And then we have Megabore giving 1,000 gold per player, which I'm assuming is less because Megabore gives the armor. And then the supply drop one is unchanged. Boom. So those are our patch notes. But yeah, that is it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it valuable. Remember to take care of yourself and keep vibing. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.